the idea of this meeting, Feed Your Funnel. So the Feed Your Funnel workshop, we do it every Wednesday, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock Central. And the idea is bring somebody on who's going to help us do that. And that doesn't matter how. There's lots of different angles, but the point is, how do we create opportunities for ourselves? So it's very action oriented. We want people to come up on stage basically and say, okay, Chris will kind of take you through a process. What are you doing? What needs to be done based on his expertise, which is around this idea of challenges. So I don't know if people are familiar with challenges, but let's start there. Is how many people know what a challenge is? And kind of seen.
I went through a major one a couple of months ago, JVology, 5-day challenge.
There you go. So you want to explain that, and maybe that'll help sort of.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was really weird. It was after I made the decision to be a joint venture broker. I downloaded a document, and then 3 days later, I got a note from Jay Facette of JVology on Facebook inviting me to a 5-day challenge. And when I got into the challenge, there was a prize that could be won at the end of it. And I knew that if I could win it, it would help me as a JV broker. So I played very intentionally, and I conferred with all the organizers behind the scenes. I made sure I did everything right. I made sure I gave more than anybody else, commented on people's posts, like super intentional, even played an image of them calling out my name on the final night. And on the final night, I won it, $12,000 worth of prizes. But that was from a challenge, and it was free.
Chris and Bobby and I did a challenge together, and it worked, and it led to a workshop where people from the challenge signed up. So the idea of a challenge is, in its simplest tactical form, it's part of a funnel. So it's a way of getting people closer to you, and then you're making offers to them to get further down your pipeline.
You just gave me a fabulous idea. Thank you.
But the approach that Chris takes is much, much broader than that. So he talks about it in terms of creating movements and communities. So why don't I turn it over to you, Chris, and then put your name in the chat or just alert me. So what we'll do is we're going to talk about your individual situation, and Chris can start providing ideas to help you sort of create your own movement, create your own community, think about your own challenge. To accelerate your business. One of the fastest way to start really getting known and creating better opportunities. That was my experience with working with Chris on this.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I remember Larry had me, I think it was right in the early part of January. I think I was the first or second speaker that you had. We had a huge group together, and people were afterwards like, man, you're on fire. You were so dialed on that presentation. And part of it's because what we'll talk about a little bit today as we go through this is this challenge model, which is all about creating movement, showing those that are in the community, the challenge. Nathan, you said you probably felt trust there, right? You felt that the person on the other end could help you a lot with what you were doing through the process. When you're really getting that zone, it does bring a lot of energy. I just got out of a program over the last 5 weeks, helping about 15 people learn how to build their own challenges, and went through that. And today was the final day there. And all of them are they're all excited going forward. But they're like, man, I'm going to put all my energy into this week, because it's, you give so much in that week. And then there's that conversion process on the other side. But for those of you who don't know me from the high level, Larry kind of teed this up. I guide clients on how to build a movement that creates enduring revenue with the challenge model. Okay. So I like to say I'm your corner man in social selling, but with a twist. I bring the next component of what this is into it, right? Anybody can say they understand LinkedIn and how to do it. I can help you a ton with that. And if that's part of this conversation, absolutely. I'll give you a boatload of tips for LinkedIn if you want. But what I do is, how do you take that group that's following you, that's seeing your content, and convert them into family, right? I like to call, when somebody becomes a client, they're family at that point. So what's that process look like? And the good thing is, I like to say I'm a doer, right? So everything you hear me talk about as I give you advice, whatever I preach, I practice, I live it. So anything I have typically is 50% framework, 50% action. And when it's deep action mode, like I'm in a 12-week run, I work my year on 3 12-week cycles. If you ever read the book, the 12-Hour Work Week, I work on that over 3 months, 3 times a year. And I'm in that right now. And when I do that, it's actually more like 70% action, 30% framework, meaning I'm putting more action into moving things forward. So I'm here to serve you, answer any questions, walk you through some things for just to lay the foundation so you understand how I got here, right? I'm an endurance cyclist, so you might hear cycling terminology through this conversation. So if you hear the word Peloton, that's community, that's tribe, that's your people group. Okay, I apologize. That word comes out of my mouth a lot because I spent a lot of time in the Peloton on the bike. Back in 2017, I did the hardest mountain bike race in North America, the Leadville 100. And it was right when I crossed that finish line, my family coming across the finish line with me, I knew life going forward was about making an impact versus just making a living. That was up in the high altitude of Colorado. They lie, it's 104 miles. You have 14,000 feet of climbing when you're done. And quite frankly, I did pretty good. I came in the top 20%. So, for my age group. So I was kind of psyched being a New Yorker at that elevation, but I just knew that was the moment. If I didn't go after my dreams, they were never going to find me. So before that, there's a story, right? I've been in corporate America a long time, corporate sales. I've helped a couple companies cross over 100 million in sales in sub 3 years. And I helped another company build a movement. It's actually kind of where this started, cross $1 billion in sales in sub 5 years, right? And it was where a lot of my conversation I talk about here was that company, because I watched a movement build. So as I was doing that, before Leadville 100, had 3 weeks off from a job, had a new boss come in who waited 3 weeks to introduce himself to me about a week before I was going on vacation. Anybody ever been there in one of those situations? I worked remote, had the largest deal in the company, crossed the finish line, signed, sealed, and delivered. The day before my new boss decided to reach out to me, the company was T-Mobile. They went into a merger agreement and had to put our contract on hold. Anybody ever been in there in corporate sales? Oh boy. So got the call from the new sheriff, as he put it, and said, hey, I need to know everything you do, how you do it, what you do. And I need to see all these texts that you send out and this and that, because I'm big on social and texting, right? I'm not an email guy. I'm very big on the relationships. I was like, hey, everything you need is in our Salesforce. Fast forward, won't give you all the details of the conversation. It ended on a Friday afternoon at 4:10 Eastern. Never forget this. Chris, if you don't give me this list of information by Monday, 9:30 in the morning, there's some serious consequences to be had. Now, little did he know I had a side hustle going that was already replacing my corporate income. He knew I was about to go on achieve a dream in life. So I was like, you know what? This makes no sense anymore. This is the moment that I need to get out of corporate America. Gave that wife the nice conversation. Hey, I have an idea, babe. That Monday, quit my job. Never in my life was I pulled out of a company so fast for the deals I was working. I mean, they had me signed, sealed, delivered out the door within 4 hours. So that just told me that guy was setting me up. And I've been on this journey since. So what I want to do is really just help each and every one of you here, because during this time, I've built a brand up for myself that really helps attract the right kind of avatar, Peloton people group on LinkedIn. And then I'm able to bring those together in a community, build that community, and convert them into family using the challenge model. So I could go through a presentation, I could talk about anything you want, but I really want to see what you want to hear, and I'll serve you wherever I can. And if I can't help you in something, I'll make sure I'm very blatant about that, and we'll see what we can do from there. So the floor is yours. I just wanted to make sure you understood who I was.
So Nathan put his name in first. So why don't we start there? And then just anybody else as we go, just throw your name in and we'll go sequentially. What is it, 112 right now? I bet we could probably get four, maybe even 5 people in. So just throw your name in. So Nathan, yeah, why don't you guys kick it away? I'll put myself on mute.
Yeah, sure. I never intended to do this. I just made a post because you inspired me right away with what you said about the collaboration to do with a challenge. And I thought, oh my God, I've been in lone wolf syndrome again. And when you said that, I thought, oh, that was a missing piece. I got to do a challenge as soon as I can. How I'm going to do it or who I'm going to do it with is another story, but you just really inspired me when I heard that.
Awesome. I use a term called collaboration as currency. And it was the one company I talked about that we brought up to $1 billion in sales in a short window of time. It was all about collaboration. That's how we did that. But Nathan, what is it that you do? Because I can give you some tips on, because I've, between myself and clients that I've launched and clients that I've coached on one-on-one consultations, seen almost 40 go across finish lines. And I know which ones are going to have successes and which ones are just going to be like, oh, save your time. You don't want to go that way.
Okay, well, a couple things. Working as a joint venture broker, made that decision a few months ago, starting to build relationships with people that way, bringing people together to work together, make a commission when it happens. The other thing, I finally pulled the pin on it this morning. I'm going to launch a podcast based on an idea I've had, which will be primarily about joint ventures, but broader business as a whole. And one of the key things I want to do when I launch this thing is how do I monetize it right from the word go?
Yep.
I've heard that I can. I'm meeting with a guy tomorrow to talk about it, but if you have any ideas about that, I'd love to hear them.
So on the podcast monetizing it, I mean, so let me just understand the JV broker part of this. What kind of products
Sure.
are in that JV broker side of things? Like who you partnered with?
It really could be anything, but I chose to focus with software to begin with because that's what I know the best. And so that's where I am at the moment. But if somebody comes up with some sort of idea that I've never considered, like actually the podcasting thing was another thing. It suddenly dawned on me, wait a second, if I could work with somebody who's got an existing base with podcasts where they're doing a monthly service, I could reach out to different people, create partnerships with people, like maybe what they call a triangle joint venture, and create a monthly income model off that. And I reached out to a friend of mine who I knew I was into the space. He had all the answers I needed, solved my problem just like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the software, is this high-end software? What kind of software? Just curious.
That's a really good question.
Like
It
who's
just
the target
depends.
market? That would be ideal. Like who's that target market you go after with that software?
Well, the software, multiple different people, like one software package is for tracking containers. So
Okay.
it's going after companies that do that. But actually, what I learned a long time ago, because that's a onesies and twosies, it's the wrong approach to go after organizations and associations. And why? One presentation, and if they like it, it opens the door to maybe thousands of members. So I multiply my efforts considerably.
Yeah. So what I always have clients do is I ask these two questions. If you want to write these down, you might not have the answers now,
Please
but
do.
this, like, because to me, we all have a movement inside of us, right? Each and every
Yep.
one of you have a story in life. You've overcome a challenge, whatever that is. No pun intended on the challenge that I do, but you've
Yeah.
come over a challenge. And there's a people group out there waiting for you, right? They're waiting for you.
Okay.
Like, when's Nathan going to cross that finish line so he can guide me forward, right? So what
Okay.
I always ask people, and I've been through some series of challenges in life, and you'll probably hear some of them as we go through this, but I always ask myself, and I ask clients this because this is what opened my eyes, right? I hired all these gurus to help me with so many things, and I could never get something out of me. And then one mentor asked me this question, these two questions. Chris, who are you fighting for? So who's that group you're fighting for? Even if it's a company, an industry, a people group, who is that? Who's that person? And why are you fighting for them, right? What are those two reasons? When you can answer that, what you brand yourself as, how you do everything else becomes a lot easier. And like I said, I mentioned, I just got out of a program for the last 5 weeks, helping some folks learn how to build challenges. And one of the women in there, she works with CFOs, okay? And she has this whole big, huge program, and it's kind of convoluted. And her messaging was it was just really hard to understand because she was trying to speak to every CFO out there. And I asked her those two questions, and she started crying on the Zoom. And I'm like, you okay? And she's like, no, we're good. She goes, I'd never been able to get out what I just wrote on my paper, Chris. And this, she's in her 60s, right? She's like, I've been through this whole process. She goes, I now know who I want to work with because of your two questions. So now she's launching a challenge very focused on that kind of people group. And she's just targeting all her branding, all her messaging on that. And she's now been telling me how the right people are coming to me on LinkedIn. The right people are speaking to me. The right people, when I talk to somebody, so I don't know technically any of you minus Larry, right? I'm getting to know each and every one of you. But if Nathan and I first had a meeting together and Nathan's like at the end of the meeting, well, Chris, you've given me a lot of value. How can I help you? Well, here's the kind of people I help. And if I'm very sub-segmented, micro niched, I like to call it on those people, Nathan's immediately probably going to say, gosh, I know 3 or 4 people that could use you right now, Chris, versus when I just say, hey, I help CFOs increase their revenues without losing their, their profits along the way or something like that. That's a CFO of every, okay, whatever. But this woman got it down to where she was with high-tech companies that were SaaS software that were female owned, and they were on the Inc. She had something with the Inc. I forgot, Inc. something marking, right? It's sub-segmented so far down that she's starting to speak to that on LinkedIn, and she's having people come to her left and right, like 2 or 3 people a day saying, hey, I want to know what you're doing. So the reason I was asking you very early on, what's this software do, is I had a funny feeling and hey, I'm guilty as charged too, because I had this issue for
Yeah.
many years. I had, side hustles and software, all sorts of things, and they all did great things. It was when I finally said, what's the one thing I'm always going to talk about and brand myself around? And as I build relationship with people, it's very easy to say, hey, Nathan, I heard in the conversation, you're looking for something like this. I actually have something like that, but you already knew and trusted me at that point. So my one
Yeah.
piece of advice is take a look at all that software or whatever it is with these brokers and see what speaks the most to your heart and answers that question, and run with that to a certain extent.
Yeah, I can actually answer both of those questions right now, but it's going to be super controversial if I do it. I mean, I do know the answer to it because I've been doing a lot of fighting as of late and getting myself into a shitload of trouble because I've been doing it. And I've had to pull back from it because it's just, I don't know what to tell you. But I do know the answer to both of those questions in terms of what's going on in the world right now. But I hesitate to mention it because I don't want to create a controversy in this group.
Yeah,
So-
it's very interesting to come back with that answer, because like some of the people I've helped, like they're like, how are you open-minded, Chris? I'm like, hey, whatever it is, like just tell me now. And the way the world is now, we need bridges in this world. That's my opinion, because there's all these people that think this way, and everybody wants to kill each other if they're not on that side and this side.
Yeah.
So, frame how you want to do that. You don't necessarily have to share this with us now, but like, I think
Yeah.
that's in your heart, and
It's-
that's the route you're going to take. That will be a stronger route.
It's the wrong direction and I know it, but I've had a hell of a time stopping myself from doing this because I have an enormous thing to do with caring and enormous thing to do with a sense of personal responsibility, even though I know that a lot of these people I've been trying to help probably wouldn't give two beans about me, but it's been a real time suck because I know this, and it's been a hell of an internal fight. And it's something it might be better to share with you offline. I'm kind of afraid to do it now.
Hey, Chris, one of the things, and Nathan, is, if you look at storytelling, you study, and I'm a student of storytelling, and I know Chris is as well. I have this process we call market point of view. So having a perspective on the market,
Okay.
what's the change people are aware of? What's the conventional wisdom around that change? And then you make your big reveal. So that's the thing about you that's special and different. Now, one of the storytelling sort of approaches is the us versus them story. So you're creating a group that's a subgroup of people who are against something and for something.
Yeah.
Now, the only way to do that is if you have a good mindset practice. So you're going to get arrows. Well, if you feel strongly enough about it, build the mindset practice and take the arrows. And some people may not like you.
Yeah, that's already happened. But I've had to stop what I'm doing because I know that's interfering with my life and where I need to go. But I just have a really strong sense of social responsibility. I've always been like this. It has to do with, in the simplest terms, overcoming the bullies, overcoming stuff like that. And that's as far as I'm going to go with it, because I don't feel it's right for me to share it any further in this group.
Anything else you want to go over here? Should we bring
I don't know.
Jim's going to come up next. Anything you want to complete with, or?
I honestly don't know what to say any further unless Chris has an idea of what. But I mean, the two questions are great. I'm just trying to think of like, how can I transform this into something
Dr.
else?
Rick.
Yeah, I think what you
Oh,
do.
Dr. Rick, it's an honor to connect with you here. We're up
There's
for a Zoom
You
meeting.
need a mute
Otherwise, I hope
for
you're having a
everybody on
great
the
week
call that's not
and a blessed
speaking,
week.
please.
Thank you.
What I do from there, Nathan, is when we figure that out, right? Then typically.
Hello, Dr. Richards. It's an honor to connect with you here on
Here we go
LinkedIn. I
again.
hope you're having a great week. Let me know if you're ever interested in doing a quick get to know you Zoom meeting. Blessings to you. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, I found it. Go ahead.
Okay, that was entertaining though.
Yeah, it was.
But from that question, then what I start to do is look at, okay, what's the movement that you want to create? So there's a good move. There's a TED talk on how to create a movement. I share that a lot when I do any kind of speaking, but it
Cool.
shows how like somebody's that lone crazy nut, and then that first follower comes, and then you transcend that first follower to, keep on moving forward. So as the movement builds, everybody is at least with the same vision and the same mission, right? So you look at like Larry was a lone nut building this whole program here. Now others have grasped it, right? He had his very first few that were like, hey, I want to be part of this, Larry. And now that's just kept on transcending from here. So I'd encourage you to watch that, and I could put it in the links after this. And then from there, if it's something that's really speaking to your heart that you're talking about, you build the challenge. And the challenge model, it looks easy from the outside. I can tell you after doing a lot of them, the design of the challenge is critical, the design. So it's a much deeper conversation, but a high level, like, what are you going to move people forward through each day? So like I'm doing a challenge in a couple of weeks, right? And it's a social selling mastery challenge. And each day I have a defined case where we're going to start. And by the end of the week, you're going to be here. Here's what we're going to do each day. But every step is logical along the way. It's not like I'm throwing some middle day in there that's like, hey, that makes no sense sitting there. So each week, what happens, right, is during that challenge, people are getting more value. They're growing. I'm challenging them to do something every day, which you probably experienced in the challenge you did. But at the end of it, they're going to be in two scenarios. One, I could probably go try to figure this out on my own. There's a lot of research to do. Yeah, I got the next 9 years of my life to figure this out. Or that knucklehead sitting there just proved a lot of value to me. He knows what he's doing. What's this going to take to go to the next level, right? And that's, you're always going to have to go figure it out on your own. And those that want the guide.
Well, one question I can answer for you, which is not what you're fighting for and why are you fighting? The one thing I do know, my highest value is community.
Okay.
That much I do know. I can tell you that for sure. And another thing is integrity. So those two things. And if I go away from what I was thinking about earlier, the obvious answer is like, no, it would be building community. Like one thing I would love to do very much is a number of years ago, there was a streaming media platform called Blab. I was a part of it. I fell in love with it. One of my major goals in my life, I want to recreate Blab and the experience of it in the community, and it was absolutely wonderful. If I could find a way to do that, man, that would
What's
be
your
amazing.
podcast? What's your podcast around? Just curious.
It's about, to do with joint ventures, but also like discoveries in business. It's about bringing people together. Everything that I do is about that.
So I just heard in multiple different ways the word community out of your mouth. Like, so joint ventures, that's community, right? Because you're partnered up with others. You just talked about, your people group. I mean, you asked a question about the podcast early on. It's almost like have your podcast speak to community to bring everything else together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things to line up through that and stack, but that would be my recommendation for sure.
Yeah, I get it. I'm so glad you said that. It makes perfect sense. And it's like how it is that too close to the forest to see the trees. You just gave me that. Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Jim, I see you have a question. Go for it.
Well, am I off mute? I guess I am.
Yep, okay. I can hear you.
I have a niche business where I market the service of forensic accountants, business valuation experts, and economists. And their market is attorneys, litigation attorneys. There's about 1 million litigation attorneys in the country. My addressable market is about 100,000 of those million. So what I've learned, and I'm not talking about my market, but other markets that I'm looking to kind of spin off of what I'm doing and find other markets like that has recurring revenue, because I do have recurring revenue in that marketplace. And I certainly haven't exhausted all of the prospects in that. But my challenge, I think, like most of the people here, is I'm one guy and I don't want to be the Lone Ranger anymore. I'm that whole scaling thing has got to be something that's got to happen. I've got to use partners in order to do that, because there's just, I feel like hiring is also a little bit of a challenge in that process as well. But one of the businesses that I'm thinking about, and I hope this is not too far off topic. I've got a little ADD here, but in doing my business, I essentially take profiles of people from LinkedIn, like litigation partners, and I take all of their everything that's publicly available about them, and I have my guy in India basically annotate all the information in that biography as it relates back to what my client does.
Okay.
I then put it in a high-speed dialer, and I make phone calls. So I make about 60 meetings a month, every month, with litigation attorneys. Now, I've exhausted what I can do, but what I'm challenged right now is to find the next person that can do what I do, and also just learn to give kind of let somebody else do this stuff, because I've been so overly crazy about doing it on my own. And again, maybe I'm off topic here, but I think I've got a sellable service that I could sell to a lot of different Fortune 500 companies that have large enterprise sales staffs that need to have this recurring training of their enterprise people to make calls, because the enterprise people didn't make calls. They had SDRs.
Yep.
Now they're finding out SDRs don't work, and I shouldn't say that. Some SDRs don't work, but I think I could take what is in my model and teach an enterprise salesperson who's selling parts to the aerospace industry and be able to reach that market utilizing this process. But I'm all over the board here, but what I'm trying to get to is how do I pivot out of this business and scale myself into all these other things while I'm so focused on this niche business.
Yeah. So, I mean, one way that, so there's a framework that you can do, but one thing I've always done when I want to go into a different market or look at a potential different market is clients that I know reside in that market, or people that I know that know people, but usually clients I know that. So I reach out to them personally, Jim, and I just say, hey, Jim, just want to connect with you. I'm about to launch something, but I'm looking for feedback. I'm doing some market research before I launch it. And I already have the program mapped out of what it is going to be, right? So I'll give you an example. I had a $1 million framework using LinkedIn I was going to launch like 3 years ago. And I went out to about 15 people and just asked for their opinion. And I got their opinion because at the end of it, I said, hey, this is what I'm planning on charging for this after you learned everything I do. What do you think? And I got the feedback from each and every one of them. Now, there's two strategies of why I did that. A, to make sure what I was going to launch was, going to be something the market demanded, right? B, half of those are like, hey, when you do that, call me back. Like, because some of them are like, I want this right now. And I'm like, oh, I'm not even in a position to do this. Like, this could be another month, 2 months. I just want to make sure this has market share. Well, I'll be your first client, Chris. So if you do that kind of approach, you probably will pick up clients, but you'll also validate at the same time, because I've done it with other things and I validated, don't go down that path. It's not going to go anywhere. It's oversaturated market. Everything's a commodity. Don't waste your time. You could find that out too. It doesn't sound like that for you, but I would absolutely consider that. And you could even, since you're good with the phone and doesn't sound like you have the fear of the 100-pound gorilla there, you could call up a few companies saying, hey, just doing some market research, about to launch something, and get their opinion. Because it doesn't hurt to get cold feedback either. Say, I know we don't know each other for anything. The challenge with the cold feedback is, in this time and age, getting on somebody's calendar for something like that, like, you're low priority to them. That's why I usually go to people I know to a certain extent.
Yeah. I feel like the one thing that I can do is I can show people live what I'm doing. So I can say, spend 45 minutes with you, and I'll prove that this works.
Yep.
And I feel like if I was selling SAP to a certain vertical, SAP software, that their enterprise people could get 5x the number of appointments utilizing this model.
Yep.
And that's where I'm thinking, here I am, I'm making a limited amount of money in my niche, which is okay. I mean, I'm not poor, but I'm thinking, gosh, I've got this golden thing that I'm doing, and it's limited to this market. Now I want to scale it to other things.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good starting point for you, at least to get you thinking a little bit. And I mean, you could take it as far as, like, I like to call it the micro niche. Like, is there a specific kind of company and industry, the market
Well,
they
and it's that
share? You could.
it's really selling not it's selling how the ability to attack the market utilizing this type of stacked technology. And I
Yep.
think Justin Michael and Tony Hughes are talking about that with their book a little bit, but I've actually been doing it for the last 6 years, what they've been talking about, whereas, so that's kind of my thought. But I also think that I need to partner with somebody to kind of help me frame it up too. So, because,
Right.
I'm not the guy to do that. So, but anyways, enough of my pontificating.
Well, I mean, at least I from a starting point, I would just definitely, start the survey process. I mean, I know that works. I've seen it work time and time again for people with no problem.
Chris, can this be a challenge, or is it too early to do a challenge out of a chalkboard kind of exercise like this?
I mean, the beauty of a challenge is it's creative. The challenge of the challenge in this model is how will you not knowing enough, will you fill it with the people group you need? Now, I've launched a business just with the step of faith through a challenge, right? I had 12 people show up for the challenge, and by the end, 5 of them bought what I had, right? It started a business for me because of that. So it is absolutely possible. It's going to take some work from what I would recommend first is do a survey with at least 5 to see what the feedback is on what you could charge for that first off. And if there's market demand for it, which I believe there's market demand. I'm just listening, Jim.
Like Mary Lou Tyler, who was one of the co-authors of Predictable Revenue with Aaron Ross. I've had a lot of conversations with her, and she sells her program for, like $25,000, for really a day of work, and not a day. It's probably more like a week of prep, but it's not her doing all the work, obviously, but her model that gets implemented to other companies. So,
You really got to document your stuff.
I do have it pretty well documented,
Okay, because a big problem with wanting to scale is, like, if things aren't documented, then people can't repeat it. If it's all in your head, that's great.
It's all documented. It's a very,
that's cool.
very well-defined process. And the only thing that's not defined, and it is in a way, is taking people's biographies and annotating them into bite-sized pieces. So in other words, I've got 100 people that are intellectual property attorneys focused on the music business. That's all I'm calling on in that little space. Well, then I take all of these. I have my guy in India that will take all of the different pieces about that individual that are either remarkable or relate back to what my client does, so that I have those talking points, so that when let me just give you a quick description.
Yeah.
I'm in a batting cage, and say I'm in a batting cage, and I have to wait 5 minutes for a pitch to happen. That's like cold calling 1.0. Okay. Yep. Now I'm in a batting cage, and the ball is coming to me every 3 seconds. I'm being exaggerated, but every minute there's a ball coming at me. So what that does is, it creates more live conversations, but it does create a challenge also, because you've got a problem, because you got to talk to that person. And when you get on the phone, you don't even know what that person is. And then all of a sudden you say, "Hi, my name is Jim Duffy with the Litigation Connection. I'm calling on behalf of Dan Broadhurst." And I talk about him, and then I'll say, "Oh," and the guy will say, "Why are you calling me?" And I'll say, "Well, I see that you were second chair on the John Gotti trial." Well, I didn't even see that until the minute I got that live conversation. So I can hyper personalize, I can hyper, relevant, make it relevant. And that's the only part that is, I guess, not documented, but that's a little bit more of a critical thing that needs to take place. So Sorry about taking over your call there.
No, it's okay. Thanks, Jim. Let me ask you a question about where our challenge is now. So the challenge, obviously, with anything, when it works, is there's a saturation point. So when you're going to do a challenge and tie it into this movement and community component, which not everybody's doing, so that's still kind of new in a way and sort of on the upswing, how do you stand out? How does somebody cut through to build the attendance? Are there
Yeah.
certain predictable steps to do that? What's the challenge to do it?
Well, it goes design is start, no doubt. There's a lot of branding beforehand on your social profiles and what you speak on. So like and I just was in a group that this question was asked. This woman was like, you know, I'm in the challenge because I'm doing a challenge now. I feel like I hear about is challenges, right? And because she's like, but she goes, granted, I never knew what one was 6 months ago before I met you, Chris. So there's that. And I said, well, there's two things happening. A, you're in an environment that you're grasping this, so you're probably doing some keyword searches. So challenge ads are showing up in front of you. She's like, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. I'm like, okay, there's that, right? So I said, go look up a Toyota and something and let me know what the ads start showing up after. She's like, she started laughing. So I had a clearer mindset on that. But I will share how this was. Challenges have been around for a very, very long time, right? It's nothing new. However, the term that I started coining with another person, my mentor, was movement marketing, moving people forward, right? So I talk more about movement marketing because that's what I'm branding myself on when it comes to movement marketing for thought leaders. That's what I brand myself around LinkedIn a lot. So when I look at the model, when I was mentored, and the person I was mentored by, he does Tony Robbins's challenges, Dean Grazio's, all these big boys, right? And I watched how he was doing it, and he was doing great, but he was putting 30, 40, 50,000 people in Facebook groups. So I watched, I learned the framework. I spent right by his side for 30 days, learned everything. And I said, okay, I'm going to carve a micro niche off of what he's doing, right? Similar framework, but I'm going to add my own components that I'm very good at, which involve LinkedIn. And we were doing some Clubhouse stuff, but I focus more on LinkedIn. So instead of doing ads for challenges, which my clients, some of them do, but most don't, we focus on building a challenge through LinkedIn events, and we take that route. There's less noise on LinkedIn for challenges. Literally almost everybody I talk to, like, what the heck's a challenge, Chris? And I have to explain that. Like, oh, Tony Robbins done there did one of those things, right? I'm like, he did, but how did you not know what one is? I don't know. He sends me emails all the time. So depending where you're looking, it's a very quiet place, but the challenge hook, what the name of that challenge is, what's that value you're going to deliver, and what you're going to help people avoid, and what you're going to have them grow to over the next 3, 4, 5 days, whatever it is, that's critical. Because that's like anything. You start scrolling on social media, you got to get them in the first 3 seconds. If you can't get them with that, you're done. So when I frame a challenge with somebody, I'm like, okay, let's look at the finish line. What's your offer? Okay, here's how we're going to design it every day. And I just do it very high level. I don't even go nitty gritty with them. I'm like, let me just get to that. Okay, now let's get the hook down. First off, your social profile needs some serious work before this hook makes sense, because you want it logistical when a person comes to their profile. And I'm going to show you guys right now, if I can give you an example. I'll share my screen right here. If you go to my profile, is everybody seeing my screen? All right, I'm gonna bring up my LinkedIn. Bear with, I'm recording. If you see a video pop up saying your recording's done, I'm transcoding a video at the moment. But when you go to my profile, this is what I always suggest with people. So right now I have a 5-day challenge coming up in a few weeks. And if you guys want, I'll give you guys free access to this. Just remind me, if you go to my featured section, I'll tell you exactly what to do. Put in underneath the checkout, put the word challenge in, type it manually, challenge. And then you just got to put your credit card in. It won't charge you. It'll take the $55 off. But for showing up today, I'll give that to you guys. It's the week of the 20th. But if you look, you see this is where everybody misses this stuff. Social Selling Mastery 5-Day Challenge, your framework for building an enduring revenue stream, right? That's something that I'm talking about. Look at my title, your corner man for social selling, building 5 to 6-figure challenges, right? Very much in line. If you go down to my profile, I have 2 featured things here, right? I have a lead magnet, which I call a tripwire, which helps me fill my challenges all the time. And then I have the challenge. And then if they read right here, this is how I break through the noise. It's a very consistent brand message. So what I've seen in the challenge model, when I was introduced to it and learned it last May, not this May, the May before, the market did 120 million in sales. That's what it did on the group I was in tracking. Last year, it crossed 240 million. This year, it's already crossed 1 billion in sales, the marketplace. So is it more challenges being done? Is it higher ticked programs? Or is there more value being delivered? Or is it because the world has changed dramatically and now we have this virtual hybrid model and more people are doing over, Zoom here? I think it's a combination of all factors, but I don't see the model changing. Knowing that in a year, it's gone from the group that I'm in that tracks this. This is only this group, a group I'm part of that I'm mentored in, has tracked over 1 billion in sales this year. The key thing is, how do you break that noise, like Larry said? And if you can't break the noise, you're done. So it's all about the design the message, and the reason I was talking to Nathan about this before, the micro niche. Like, I'm very big on micro niche, and so you're not speaking to the world. You literally want somebody coming to whatever you're having and say, that's for me, right? I have a person that's about to do something with a book launch, and he's very specifically saying, hey, I deal with women thought leaders who earn 6 figures a year. And I forgot his second hook on it. He has, but like, he'll get his people group left and right because it's so focused on that group. Not that he can't help the rest, but he's going to focus on that target group. So he gets a challenge that gets 20, 30 people in it. And then his conversion rate at the end, because they want to be there, because I make people pay for my challenges, not a big amount, $55. So they'll be there. They want to be there. His conversion rate will be 40 to 50%. You know, Larry, Bobby, and I did a challenge earlier in the year, and our conversion rate on that one, I think, was close to 43% by the end of that challenge. It was a $2,400 workshop we did. But you got it, like, the noise, and it's nothing different than social media. If you can't break the noise on social, like, you're not, like, it's the only way like, once you understand how to break the noise on social, the rest happens. So if you saw my profile there, something that I've done is I only put 2 things in my featured section. Often it's just one, but right now I have 2. One is a tripwire. It's a lead magnet, right? So I'm teaching people how to set up. If you go back, I'm not on it now. If you go to my profile, I show people how to get high valued clients using LinkedIn events. But there's a hack to LinkedIn events that I teach people so they can get people's email address. And I walk them through a framework that shows them what to do after they have that email address, right? That's my lead magnet. But the second they get that, it goes to what I call a tripwire. Hey, here's an event I spoke at that's going to give you more value on how to build a movement. By the way, here's your download. Oh, and guess what? I have a challenge coming up in 3 weeks. If you'd like to attend, it's $55, low ticket offer. Once I moved them there, I immediately broke through the noise.
So we had a couple of people answer no to the poll. I got to end the poll. Do you know your hyper niche? So we had some no's to that. I can't tell who said no, but I would love if, let's see, let me get rid of that. There we go. Share results. So if you did, or yes, I guess, I'd be curious to know first, if it's yes, what is that niche and how did you get to it? I think that would be helpful for the group. And if it's no, let's work on it. You know, we've got another 15 minutes or so. If we can get to an answer. Chella, so why don't we bring you up here? Okay, there we go.
Hello. Mine is, I think I'm pretty clear, but Chris, I'm open for feedback. Mine is women entrepreneurs 35 to 45. They're service-based, they're 6 figures. And this is perfect timing. So I ran 3 challenges last year and they were magnificent. I was in the middle of running one or getting ready to run one, and it just flopped. So I decided to scratch it, kill it, and reschedule it for next year and then regroup.
Okay.
I was just not getting the traction that I did the last 3.
So one question is, how often were you doing your challenges? Just curious when you do them.
I did 3.
Okay.
My goal is to do 2 or 3 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one thing that all my clients, what they're doing is typically 1 a quarter. I have one client, and I did this for a while, but now because I'm launching so many people, I do mine 1 a quarter. Like, I have my 1 a quarter, but I used to do them every month. Like, I always did a 5-day challenge once a month, but it worked perfectly, right? It was just a nonstop flow. So one thing, when you do go looking back at that, start to look at like how frequent, because it's like, it's good to have it on your calendar. Like, hey, oh, you can't make this one, you have the next one, right? Because I learned that last year. No matter how early in advance you prepare, so many people are busy the week you got to do it, right? I charge, I don't know if you were doing yours free or charging. I charge so people get the access to replays for lifetime and all that good stuff. Your niche, I like your niche, women entrepreneurs, 35 to 40. You said 6 figures too, right? You had a specific number in there. I mean, that's great. Like, I'll share this one. Here's a client that I worked with that I share this example. Like, her message was, I help solopreneur mom coaches create one topic online programs from their zone of genius via one-on-one coaching and group masterminds. So I don't know what you exactly do, but that's her message. Her messaging on LinkedIn though, that solopreneur mom coach, her age group is 40 to 45. Like she actually has that defined right on hers. And then she'll put a little thing on the link. Hey, it doesn't mean if you're 46, I'm not going to work with you. I'll just tell you like 85% of the women I work with fall in this group. So, I mean, yours is pretty strong. The area, I mean, you like, are you working with specific industries or does that not really? Because like if you really wanted to sub-segment further, you can.
Yeah, they're service-based. So there's a service they provide. Yeah,
Okay.
service-based.
And is it software-based or is it just
They offer a service, right? Whether it's a coach, whether it is a healer, so it's a service that they provide.
okay. Yeah, no, I mean, you got yours pretty dialed. You definitely do.
Thank you.
And like, not too many people that I talk to got it that dialed, just so you know. Like, you know, most people, they have this wide message and I'm like, you're speaking to everybody. And like, you know how that goes. Sorry, I just dropped my pen. You know how that goes. When you speak to everybody, nobody listens. And that's at least yours are listening. I'll have to go take a look at your LinkedIn profile, make sure we connect because.
Well, that's interesting. See, I have two personalities, my LinkedIn, which is my one-on-one,
Okay.
and then my Facebook, which is where I was hosting my challenge. So I'm glad I'm here today because now I may need to just do there you go. May do my challenge on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn is for my one-on-one.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example just because here's the cool thing about LinkedIn. Like, check this out. I'll show you guys all this. And I know you guys probably seen Larry. This is why I do the challenges. I'll pull this one up. So here's my challenge in here, 26. Now, there's a reason now I've been promoting this for about a week now. There's a reason there's only 26. You're going to see why. All of them are in the challenge. They're all attending. Half of them have paid so far. But here's why. When they go to this page, it asks them for their email immediately. So I collect their information. So there's one variable that gets half the people. I'm not going to attend this thing anyway. Good. Saves me a lot of time anyway, right? I don't need that. Others are like, oh, not everybody's going to go in there. So that gets me their email. Now I'm messaging them an email, but then there's a lot of interaction I do in here by creating posts. I put videos up. I get some people showing that they shared this event with others. And I create this viral move before the challenge happens. Now, I don't use Facebook groups for my challenge, right? I don't believe using rented space for anything. I think that is like I've watched friends that have massive Facebook groups. They don't even know why they're out of Facebook, right? So I use a different system that I build a community on, and every client challenge I do, I put in there and my own personal challenges. Now I'm also building a community of people that have attended challenges so I can continue the relationships there, which for you may have made this next challenge that you felt you had to cancel. You might have had a whole group you could have went to. Hey, I know I helped you. Can you each help me get 2-3 people for this? Because that's what I tried to do. Like, I've had, I think, personal challenges, probably over 400 go through all my challenges in last year. The ones that I just did, not like client challenges. And I always go out to them when I do a challenge. Hey, you're in for free. Can you help me get 2-3 people? Those are a requirement. And they always do, the percentage. If the challenge speaks to them, right? Not every challenge I do speaks to them, so they're not going to be there.
Awesome.
Chella, why do you think it didn't work the last time?
This time, it hot off the press. I just canceled it Sunday. I decided Sunday that it was just not going to go. The feedback and the engagement that I received last year was so incredibly powerful. There were so many women already interested that I knew they were going to sign up for the challenge. This time, I did promote it 2 weeks and I got nothing. It was just nobody, there was no engagement, there was no excitement. And I was like,
you got the finger going up over here.
Let's see
if there's an answer.
There's an answer. The 2-week promotion window, unless you're using ads, is dead. In COVID, that was simple. I'm working with a couple well-known individuals now, and we're using LinkedIn, and we're announcing their challenges 6-7 weeks ahead of time. So I'm just letting you know, especially using this strategy, that 2-week window. Hey, I did challenges. I would announce I'm doing a challenge in 2 weeks. Fill it with no problem when COVID was in full effect. Now, because we're in this different dynamic, it's not that people don't just like, I know next week, my challenge, I'll probably have 10, 12, 15 more people sign up next week. I know they will. But it used to be the week before a challenge, I'd get 30, 40, 50. And it's not because the challenge isn't good. It's because that now life has changed a lot. So my advice, any client I work with, I have 5 launching challenges right now. All of them are end of October, beginning of November. Like I had a guy come to me yesterday saying, hey, I want to do a challenge in 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm not your guy. He's like, what? I'm like, I can't pull that miracle off right now. And I don't think you can either. So I turned him away because of that, because I don't want to set something up for failure. So, and even Larry and I, we did a challenge together and we had good attendance, but I saw this start to change May, right about May. And then I started announcing things. So I did another challenge in June, but I announced it 6 full weeks ahead of time. And I had 40 people in that challenge because of that. So I saw that start to change. You know, we've all been locked up. Everybody was out this summer. So my advice is 6, 7 weeks, 5 weeks minimal. Like if 5 weeks is the minimum number, I'll tell people to do it. And like I looked at your profile, at least you have some branding done. If a person doesn't have a brand that speaks and all this other stuff, they got to work on that stuff first. They got to work on their content strategy for, like, they don't understand all this. Like if that's not in sync with what this challenge is going to be, the whole thing collapses.
Thank you. This is valuable.
Interesting. Well, you need an answer, right? It's hard to see it happening and not know why. So I'm curious about the promotional part then of this. So you got your branding down, you got your micro niche, you got your challenge, you got it all worked out. You know, you got to get the email address, you know, you got to charge for it. So you've done all that, and you've tapped out your community. So you've got your network of people, you're asking people to find other people, and that's working pretty well. Is there a next step? Is there a cold strategy to start to bring people in, or does that just turn into spamming and not really work?
I don't do anything cold because I've made all those learning experiences in life on social media. Like I've done it all and learned from it all. So just, you know, so when I know like this social selling strategy one, I know the kind of people I wanted in there. And I actually started over the summer, just started really engaging with 20 key people and just engaged on their content. And it had some meetings. One thing led to another. This was a whole fresh community. And like one person helped me put 5 people on this challenge. Another put 7 in. So I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. And that's part of what I'm going to teach in this challenge is what I do on a daily basis that keeps the funnel always going. Now, full disclaimer, if I fall off that, like, and I do, I'm an endurance cyclist and I sometimes fall off of things. I have to restart that engine. And I always know, well, you didn't do that for like 2 weeks straight. So, you know, you're now a month behind and everything. Right. So,
right.
If you stay very steady, Larry, always actively engaging with new folks, like, you know, picking who they are, engaging on their content first, letting that organically happen. There's going to be a natural progression of people who are like, hey, what are you up to? What's going on? And then I always have a challenge to announce. Well, hey, I help them launch some client challenges. You know, it seems like you know some people around this. Here's one to take a look at. And that's how I fill them organically.
So no sequences. Find the core audience, create a list system of some sort, get into their feeds, comment on their stuff. Other people that are like them will see it too. And then you go to the inbox, correct? You go to messaging and get some meetings going.
Yeah, you know, so I shifted everything. I've used pods on LinkedIn, never deny that. Like I stayed away from years and I got in them because some people sold me on the idea and I'm completely out of them now. But what I do is I post at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. And that's the only time my posts go up, sometimes on the weekends, and I'm staying consistent with it. Now I'm paying a price because I used pods for a while, right? So I'm rebuilding that and I'm fine with it. I'm like, whatever, I'm going to just be Mr. Consistent. It'll all come back in 30 to 60 days. So another encouragement for you with your content, if you're not using that strategy, pick a time of day and post at that time of the day all the time and let your network know this is when I post, and don't bank for, like, don't change, just stay there. Eventually it'll start to shift for you where people are watching your content. Like if you go to a folder I have on one of my Chromes, I have 10 people I follow because they all post at a certain time of the day. And I know one of them gets a lot of people following them. So I'll go in right at his post time and I'll make sure I'm the first comment. I know that sounds crazy, but I ask him a good question. He's used to me by now. He responds back. We get an engagement going. Next thing you know, 10 new people came to my profile. They looked at my stuff. They interacted on my last piece of content. Typically out of that, 3 or 4 are going to do something with me. So if you, here's why nobody does it. It's work, but it's fun work. I don't mind doing it.
That's right. It's work. Isn't everything that works? Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Chris. This was really awesome. Obviously we got a lot out of this. Anybody have any final thoughts or comments, or do you? A couple more minutes here.
You know, if connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm going to put this link below. If any of you wanna, this is on me, so you don't have to pay. Just put the word at checkout. You can attend this challenge. Just put this code in. You got to manually type that. So when you go to put your information in, you'll see you have a coupon code, put challenge, manually type that. Don't cut and paste it. The system always has issues with that. It'll change it from $55 to 0. We're going the week of the 20th for 5 days, an hour a day. And it's going to be stuff like, it's like stuff you probably haven't heard before. I'm also going to walk through a process I use on how I build offers that I learned from a mentor on one day. So that's going to be really, really, really good. So please join. Love to have you there. And please connect with me on LinkedIn for any further questions or reach out to Larry. He knows how to find me. He's good at that.
All right, awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming and doing this again. Thanks everybody for coming. So we'll see some of you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock Central. So 9 to 10, we're going to talk about CRM designed for self-employed people. And then after that, we're going to break down into subgroups for connecting and networking from 10 to 11. So you can come to either or both. Thanks again, everybody.
Nice meeting you all. Have a great one.